Well, welcome everybody. Today we're holding a Q&A session. I'm Dan Applegate, Superintendent of Niles Community Schools, and we've got a lot going on. We had a lot going on this summer, a lot coming up. School year's getting ready to start in a couple weeks, and I'm very excited to get back to connect with the kids, connect with the staff, see the parents again, and get the school year rolling. Although this year school is going to be unlike any other year, and so we really appreciate the flexibility that everyone can show as we begin this school year. And today I'm really excited about the Q&A because I want to get some important information out, but I also want to hear from you and some questions that you might have, because I'm sure, I guarantee there's something that you might have thought about or a question you might have that I haven't thought or administrative team haven't thought about and that we need to consider. And again, I've talked to a couple students and they asked some questions like, you know what, that's a very good point. So we appreciate any input or any thought as well, or suggestions that you might be able to give and provide, as I sit here today and kind of share with our Q&A some information. As you know, again, I'm really excited to start the school year. Just a couple weeks ago, we started our kindergarten registration. And so it's really, really, really exciting that to see the kids. It's always nice to see the kids when we do our registration and our screening, because they come in, it's their first day of school. They're so excited. They're smiling. The parents are smiling to come in. And I'll tell you, even though everyone there was wearing face masks, you could still see the kids smiling through it. That's how excited they are. So that's how excited I am to get the school year started, to reconnect everyone. And so, coming up the new school year, we've got a lot of great things coming up, and I'll get to those as well as we get started. But over the summer, there's been a lot of time preparing for the school year. As I mentioned, I'll go through a list of some of the things that we've kind of talked about. This summer, preparing for a safe return is our top priority. We're offering both in-person and a virtual learning option. And I'll go into some details about that as well. Basically, June 30th, Governor Whitmer put out a roadmap to reopen schools safely. She had a lot of stakeholders get together and say, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to meet all these requirements before you can open schools safely. And so we worked diligently to work with students, with parents, and with staff to put together our roadmap, which was adopted last Thursday, to say, hey, this is how we're going to safely open school. But like I said, that's for in-person instruction. And we have the two options, virtual as well as in person as well. So we had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. And so, again, we want to make sure that people feel that they're safe, parents feel they're safe, families feel they're safe, students feel they're safe. And so what we've done is we've tried to keep up to date in terms of communication with our Power to School, with our school messenger. Also, there's a ton of new information on our website, including a FAQ that we just posted. Our school plans are up there. Our building plans are up there. So again, a lot of information from Berrien County Health Department, the state, is on our school website. So please visit that if you have some questions. But again, I hope today brings up some new questions and some new direction that I can answer some questions for you as well. Again, we know it's possible to predict how this disease is going to advance, and that's why we've had a lot of robust plans based on the roadmap here for that the governor gave us. So at this point, I really would like to open up for some questions. Again, staff, students, community members, anybody, any question, I will do my best to answer. And if I can't, I will get back and get answers and put it and add that to my FAQ that we have on our, like I said, our Now Schools website. So I'll take a look here. The first question I have is how do students sign up for Virtual Vikings? That's a great question. If you go to our website, there's either the FAQ, but there's also the virtual options. There it says, learning options for students, and it's also the roadmap. And if you go there, it will tell you who to contact and how to call. And it's very simple. You call. You talk to Angie Pingle's her name, and she'll explain to you the program a little bit. You can ask her a bunch of questions, whether you're elementary or middle school or high school, and regardless of what grade level, what kind of classes, she can answer a lot of your questions, what the commitment will be and what the courses look like, what supports that you have. She'll answer all those questions. And there's some enrollment paper that you have to fill out in order to get in Virtual Vikings, and then you'll get your courses set up and it'll start rolling. Also, for anybody who's interested in Virtual Vikings, or if you've already signed up for Virtual Vikings, next week, I think it's November 24th or 25th, I'll make sure I get this posted on our website. We're going to have another open house for our Virtual Vikings. We had one back in July. Again, that information is on our website, and then we're going to have another one in order to help to answer those types of questions too. But if you call Angie Pingle, she will answer your questions, 683-0732, and you ask for Angie. But again, a lot of that information is online, and you can find her name there. And please call her, and she'll help you through. Let's see. I got another question here. Can virtual students take advanced placement courses? Oh, great question. I'm hoping the answer is yes. I was meeting with Molly Brawley, the principal at the high school, right before we came on here, and I didn't get a chance to talk to her about that. We had a lot of other things that we had to kind of discuss about that, but we want to give students as many options as possible. There is an issue with bringing students in that are in the virtual in with the students who are normally scheduled during the day, but we are looking to figure out a way to do that. We do have AP online options, though. So again, one way or another, we can get an AP course offered, but whether or not someone comes into the school during the school day, I'm not sure that's going to be allowed, but we're still working through that. So more information will come out. That information will probably come out through Mrs. Brawley when she shares that as well, but might be able to have that ready for those virtual Vikings by next week. That's a great question. So I'm going to keep that and add that to our virtual Viking. How will the kids eat lunch and breakfast? Yeah, there's a lot of options for eating lunch and breakfast. And I want to kind of stick with the virtual Viking piece real quick, and then we'll tag on to students who are in person. We still believe that we will be able to offer for those who qualify or those who want to pay, lunch and possibly breakfast on for students who are virtual during in-person. We'll have a site, one of our schools probably, and it'll be kind of like our remote with your parents, or you would drive up and get a lunch and would serve you lunch and everything there in a safe way. But that's again for our virtual Vikings. So we're hoping to put that in place. More details about that will come during the day. You'll have breakfast. Most students will probably at the elementary level will eat in their classrooms. I'm not sure what exactly they're doing at the middle school level, but again, that'll be part of the building plan that's been pushed out. Again, a lot of these real specific questions about like, whether the high school is going to do lunch in their rooms, or Cedar Lane doing lunch, or is Howard Elementary going to do lunch in their room. A lot of this can be on their building plans that they're up on their websites. But at the high school, I know that what they're doing is they're looking at expanding fifth period in order to have 3 lunches rather than 2. The details of that will be in the high school plan. But yes, feeding students for breakfast and for lunch was a big part of what we thought about, how to do that. How do we do quick snack and goes? How do we do breakfast in the classrooms? And that actually makes some changes into how we do some custodial work and those type of things to make sure that things are safe and clean while students are eating, whether in the classroom or where they're going. The roadmap does like us to prevent students from different cohorts coming together, so it won't look like it did before, even if you are in the lunchroom. It'll be spaced out, and you won't be bringing a lot of different classes together during lunch. So I do know that. Okay, what else do we have here? How much of a notice will we get when transitioning to remote and back to in-person? Oh my gosh, great question. I really wish I knew that. Back in March, we heard that there's a possibility of schools closing, and honestly, I said there's no way. If you close a school, you close down the community. It's impossible. But the very next day, we got the call, and we closed in one day. Not a lot of time. And I understand that, and we got to be flexible, and I apologize that, especially for parents who are working or teachers and everyone who's trying to accommodate their family, their own personal situation, because what happens is a lot of the data is kind of trailing data. Now, I'm not an expert on any of this, but that's why I rely on Berrien County Health Department to keep us up to date. Matter of fact, we have weekly meetings with the Berrien County Health Department about these types of issues. And so it is going to be a quick turnaround. I mean, if we start seeing COVID cases rise in the area, which they're not right now, but if we start seeing them rise in the area, then they will be contacting us and they'll say, hey, it looks like you need to close. Hopefully, well, I shouldn't say hopefully, but if it does start to rise, we will get an indication early on so that we can prevent the spread, because that's what we want to do. And at that point, we would be going into remote learning. But we'll take our lead from Berrien County Health Department, and as much notice as they give us, I will be turning that right out to the community, to staff, to students, to parents, so that you guys can plan, because I know it's a disruption when we go into remote learning. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to offer in-person instruction as well right now as best we can. All right, so the questions are firing in here. So let me I have to kind of scroll here to get to them. Do the kids have to wear masks in the classroom? Yes, that is absolutely 100% a requirement, especially from 6th through 12th grade. The roadmap says if you're going to open schools, students are required to wear face masks. For kindergarten through 5th grade, it is strongly recommended, and I believe we need to start. I think we need to encourage students to wear masks in the classrooms to protect the teachers, to protect one another, protect the spread of the mask. And there's a lot of studies out there that show the effectiveness of masks. And so I think it's in our own best interest to help prevent the spread in our schools and in our community if we're wearing masks. Now, there are students and there are kids, and some kids of certain age levels can't tolerate masks. And so at that point, we're not going to necessarily punish kids who can't wear a mask, but we are going to strongly encourage that. Yes. So what else we got? Will students be able to participate in sports if they do virtual Vikings? Yes, they will. Absolutely. That was something that we took a look at. Normally in the past, we do not include our virtual students in that because that's a choice that they've made due to academics and those other reasons. However, for this reason, it is a unique situation. There's all kinds of different things that have come down. And so we believe the best course is to keep students engaged. Our virtual Viking students are not students who've left our district. We want them connected to our district. We want them to stay. We want everyone to continue to be Vikings. And in that, so we wanted to open up to continue extracurricular activity, sports and clubs. We want to encourage participation even on virtual, even though you may be participating remotely in some of those activities. If we find that our child is unable to wear a mask after the school year starts, can we pull her out and put her into the virtual Vikings? You know, I'll tell you what, that's a good question. We do encourage parents to start trying to get their children to wear masks when they're out in public, or when you go into public places, or just to see what their tolerance level is, because you just don't know. Again, if they get into the classroom and they're struggling, we will help them. Other students will be in there as well. They'll see other students wearing their masks, but we'll be very, very compassionate about that. It is not something that every child wants to wear or can wear, and so we understand. So we'll be compassionate with that. And so again, we'll take a look at the mask, and I want to make sure I answered that question. Are they after the school year? Can we pull her out and put her in the Viking? Okay, I want to finish the second part of that. Can we pull her out and put her into virtual Vikings? Yes, we're going to say yes. That will be difficult. That may put your child a little behind as you transition from the classroom to the virtual Viking, but if that's in the best interest of your child, absolutely, we'll make accommodations. Now, at some point, we can't make accommodations. We have to tell our program for the virtual Viking program, yes, we have this many students and no more. And so at some point there is a cutoff, but I believe after a few days of taking a look at that, we can still make some flexibility in there. So we'll add some flexibility to that. Will there be any requirements for students to come back to school if they have been sick? Not necessarily with COVID, but the flu or a cold, etc. Yes, we already have requirements for any kind of communicable disease, and those are in our student handbooks, and they tell you whether it has to be 72 hours after a fever or when the cough persists. You'll find that in all your student handbooks. And with COVID, there are real specific details of this. And so if it says if the requirement for a student to come back to school if they have been sick, and like you said, not necessarily with COVID, but with the flu or cold. But with COVID, we have to get Marion County Health Department involved, and they will tell us what the requirements are for a student to come back to school. In general, though, I will let you know, it's going to be a 14-day quarantine, pretty much, if someone's showing COVID-like symptoms or have been exposed to somebody who tested positive for COVID. It's around 14 days. So the same things will apply for communicable disease as in the past. And that is one of the things, if it's explained, like if you have allergies and that's why you have a fever, or that's why you're sneezing and you have known allergies, and then that is a different situation than saying, oh, I have these symptoms, I can't come to school. So those will be some unique. So if your child has some unique health conditions, make sure that your school knows. We're not excluding anybody unnecessarily. But again, we want to make sure we are taking care of students who do come down or test positive with COVID as well as a safety issue. So it's a balancing act. So we need to know those things. When will our schedules be available? If we're talking about at the high school level, those should be coming out pretty soon. I know the counselors have been working hard on the schedules. I believe we have to wait until we flip our Power School program over. Again, I know they've been working on those. Should be coming out pretty soon. Class lists will also be coming out. I know those are usually handed out in orientation open houses. So I'm not sure right now if the class lists are going to come out that first day of school. On August 31st, which again is going to be more parent-teacher conferences, that August 31st and September 1st, that Monday and Tuesday. And so I believe that may be when class lists, but look to your building. Your building is going to have that information about when your schedules and when your class lists will be available. Okay, what is a plan for those students that do have to quarantine for the 10-day time frame will they have virtual work to do during that time? Great question. This is one of the things that's really we've been struggling with, is because we're going to have students who are going to be quarantined and at home. They may be home but not sick. They could be home for 14 days and not sick and fully capable of going through a full day schedule. And so our teachers are going through some professional development, and they're learning about, with using Google Classroom and all of our digital tools that we're integrating into the classroom, so that students who might be absent, normally absent a couple of days, they come back, you get a stack of homework or makeup work, and the teachers can take a look at that, and and you can catch up pretty quickly. But when you're out for 2 weeks, it's going to take a little longer, and so we have to have some more integration. So students will be logging in and interacting more with our Google Classroom. And again, we're providing a lot of professional development on how to use Google Classroom. And some of those first days, that August 31st and September 1st days, students, high school students, junior, middle school students, and elementary students too, we need you in those conferences so that the teacher can show you how they're going to use Google Classroom. So if you are absent, how you can stay connected to the class as it moves forward. Okay, but we're going to have to make accommodations for additional absences this year. How many students do you see being in an elementary classroom? Well, one of the reasons why we offered virtual was because we knew some parents, have legitimate health concerns. The students do, or there's somebody in the household that have legitimate health concerns. And so we believe that virtual programming will reduce the class size. If I take a look at the number of virtual students that are right now assigned, I would say we're probably 3 or 4 students per class. And if we average around 25, 26, 7, we're probably talking 22, 23, 24. I can't give you a definite, but again, what I would do is I would think that you would look at on that August 31st or September 1st, when you come in and you're meeting with your teacher, they'd have a much better idea of how many students would be in your classroom on those days. So you can make your decision of what you think is safest for your child. Will virtual students get Chromebooks, or do they use their own computers? It would be a combination of the two things. It will be, if you have your own device. A lot of students prefer to use their own device because they know it, they can use it, they can work quickly. They have more capability than a Chromebook. But if they don't have their own device, yes, Dallas Community Schools will be providing Chromebooks for them. Some of that conversation will occur again on those first couple of parent-teacher student conference days, and then later on after that for like a rollout of some of the Chromebooks. But you'll get a lot of that information about the Chromebooks and the use and how the rollout will look, any papers that you might have to sign. All that information will come out those first couple of days. Will the virtual learning begin at a certain time every morning, or will be able to be completed every day at any time? Well, that's one of the benefits. That's one of the benefits for the virtual learning, is you really can do it anytime. When we talked about remote learning, you were kind of tied to a little bit more of a schedule. And that's what we kind of did last spring, and that may be an option at some point. But with our virtual learning, you can do it at any time. You just got to make sure you keep up. And we have a local certified teacher, not a teacher that's in a classroom right now that's teaching other students, but a separate teacher dedicated to this, who will be monitoring what's going on, not actually the instruction, but assisting and helping and making sure. And then additional support of a local mentor who also be making sure that you're moving through your classroom, because it's very easy sometimes with a virtual and you're working independently on your own. They kind of say, oh, I'll do that later, or oh, I'll do that later. But at some point that do that later catches up to you. And so they're like, hey, they'll get on you a little bit to say, we got to get going. But yes, it's at your own time. There's not any set schedule or set time for our virtual Vikings. That's a great question. What is the plan for choir classes? We're hoping to still have choir at the high school level. We'd have a lot of conversations with choir directors and the association. I know with band is also the question. Are we going to have band? Right now, the plan is to have those, to try to separate students as much as possible. Maybe we use the auditorium, if the band room's not being used, and maybe we use the choir room. That's something that the counselors and Mrs. Browley and the administrators are doing, trying to be very creative. And being able to move people and use classrooms creatively and schedule differently, because we also got to get in there and clean all those classrooms as well. And I know at Ring Larner, we're going to maybe move the band around a little bit from the cafeteria to the choir room to the band room, 1, so that we can separate kids, but 2, so we have time to clean in between those kind of rooms. But yeah, choir and band are 2, if you think about how COVID is spread, those are 2 very concerned classes that we have. Hopefully we can pull it off. We continue to look for guidance. But unfortunately, If we can't, and we do believe it's not safe, or we can't keep up with the cleaning protocols, those are classes that we're going to have to look into, maybe shifting into maybe a music appreciation or something like that. We don't want to do that because we really have a lot of value in our choir and our band, and we want to keep those electives as much as possible. We believe students have a lot of talents in a lot of ways and want to give them opportunities to showcase that. So I'm hoping to keep choir, hoping to keep band, and I hope we can do it safely. All right. Will there be enough devices for each student to have one, even within the same household? We're hoping so. What we did was we got some money for the CARES Act to purchase masks and hand washing stations and hand sanitizer and Chromebooks. Again, it's never enough money, but schools always say that, right? But we have enough money. We bought a bunch of Chromebooks, so we're hoping to have enough. There may be some sharing that might have to occur in households. That's not ideal. That's not what we're hoping, because especially when you talk about someone who's in high school might need a little bit more than somebody who might be in 4th or 5th grade. But that is the hope, that we can get these devices, but we will have at least one device for each household. What is the first day of school, in person and online? All right, the first day of school is going to be, I'm going to have to look this up. It's September 3rd, September 2nd for some students, which is why I have to look it up, because for some students we have, let me take a look here. On Monday and Tuesday, I've been talking about, we have parent-student teacher conferences, and I keep emphasizing the student part of that, from 12 to 8 p.m. on those 2 days, and you'll be contacted to set up those schedules. And then we actually start school September 2nd at that Wednesday. Different grade levels will report. Again, this is online. It's in a parent letter that was sent home, but you'll also see it on the website, and your buildings will be pushing this out. But just to give you an idea, on Wednesday, we have kindergarten connections, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and 6th grade attending. At the high school, we've got last names A through K for full day instruction. Northside and Southside students are reporting for full day. All returning now Cedar Lane students are reporting for all full day. And then students who are not reporting on that Wednesday, September 2nd, are to log into their Google Classroom. Again, more of that information of logging in, what that looks like on Wednesday, is going to come that Monday and Tuesday for those of you who are not starting in school that full day on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we have more students coming in. In some situations, it's all students K through 8, and then at the high school, the other half of the alphabet, and Northside, Southside, and some of the different schools. So you're going to have to look at your building level plans. The idea was to phase in. We have all these plans. We have plans for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and then in phase 4 we go remote, phase 4 for live, and virtual plan. We have a lot of different plans, and we have safety protocols that are in place too, cleaning protocols, the PPE, the requirement to have children wear masks, K5. Are those things doable? Can we do this safely? And that's what our plan says we can, and we believe we can. So we're going to put them in place. And that's why we want to kind of transition into the school year. I don't want to use phase because we use that so many times, but transition into the school year. And so that's why only half of the school students are going to start. And we picked the students that were kind of in transition, like 6th graders and kindergartners, because 6th graders are going to middle school for the first time, kindergartners starting school for the first time. So that was the idea behind that. And then we want to get the younger kids going, getting and going, because we haven't seen them in a long time. So that was the idea, to kind of get half the students in, but do a full day schedule so we can kind of see if our protocols and logistics are in place. And then September 8th, which is at Tuesday, the first day after Labor Day, we are full on in person, unless you vote elected for the Virtual Vikings. We are all in person, every school, everyone, unless again we run into some kind of logistics or something like that, an issue with our protocols, and then there may be another delay of another day. But at that point, we'll go right into remote learning. If you recall, last spring we went right into remote learning from in-person learning in one day. Well, we have better plans now for that. And so that's why, that Monday and Tuesday coming back, the first days of school here, those parents, teacher, student conferences will go through the remote, and we'll be able to shift quicker into a remote learning because of some of the conversation and the training and the information that will be shared in those 2 days. That's why it's so important to be there. Can kids with asthma come to school if they have a doctor's note? Absolutely. 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 Yeah. I mean, if there's any kind of medical condition, again, make sure that your school is aware. And again, if there's an exception to wearing a mask, then the doctor will have that on the prescription, and we know that happens. And so, yeah, we'll make accommodations for medical. Yep. What if a child starts showing symptoms in school? Will they be removed from class in school? Yes, absolutely. We have a training for all of our staff relative to the COVID symptoms. If we're not aware of what they are, Berrien County Health Department will continue to keep us up to date if there's any new symptoms. And so our staff will be trained on that, and we'll talk to students about that as well. Parents also, are a big part of making sure that our kids are safe and that they know the symptoms. And so if the student is showing symptoms, yes, they will be asked to leave class. They will be taken to what we call an isolation room. In the isolation room, we'll be able to take a temperature. We'll have other PPE, personal protective equipment there. And then parents will be called. The students who show symptoms will not ride home on the bus. So we'll have to come up with another alternative to transporting students home if the parent cannot come get them. And then once they show symptoms, we call Berrien County Health Department, and then that triggers our response. And I can't tell you exactly what our response is going to be because it depends on who the student was around and whether the classroom is going to continue to teach, or do we close down the classroom or the building or all those types of things. I can't answer that because Berrien County Health Department will give us the direction. But the questions they will ask if a student shows symptoms in the class is, who were they around? Were they around that person within 6 feet? And were they wearing a mask? And was it longer than 15 minutes? Those are the questions that Berrien County Health Department will ask. And depending on those answers, it'll depend how long that student is out and what our next steps are. That's a great question. Well, all the extracurricular classes available to Virtual Vikings, for example, graphics tech. That's similar to a question that was asked earlier, and we're still working through that. Extracurricular classes, I'm assuming what you mean is electives. Extracurricular in terms of clubs. And we do have a graphic arts club, which is a wonderful club. A lot of kids won a lot of awards last year. Extracurricular and clubs, a lot of those will be done remotely. So yes, they could participate. Sports, yes, they could participate. I'm not sure about coming into the school during the day. We're not supposed to have any visitors during the school during the day. I know is a student really a visitor? So we're working through some of the logistics of that. Some of that has to do with scheduling. Some of that has to do with the protocols of allowing people in during the day. How many students could we safely allow into the school during the day, and those type of things. So we're still working through that. But right now, my answer would be there would not be an elective course that someone could take who's in a Virtual Viking to come into the building to take that course. How will I teach my son speech if the teacher is to wear a mask? That's a great question. Again, you guys are asking great questions. I love this. That is something that has been asked over and over and over again. And so there are barriers that we're trying to get teachers, plexiglass barriers. We made one for at least all the speech teachers have one, I know for sure. And we use them for kindergarten registration just to see how they would work. And it's just a plexiglass barrier. It just sits in front of you, and it's a square like here. And because again, with speech, what has to happen is the articulation. The articulation is key. And so the speech teacher would have to maybe pull down their mask and articulate with that barrier here to help the student do that. The other way we could do that is some remote as well. A speech teacher and a student could be in separate rooms or, apart from each other 6 feet or even further, and do it remotely. So the speech teacher could get closer to the camera to show what the articulation looks like, especially if they have to do some breathing with artic. But no, and I'll tell you what, our speech pathologists are so creative. They're so creative. They always come up with new and innovative ways to deliver speech services, and I'm sure they'll come up with something, but speech services will continue. So yes, that's a good question. Will virtual students be provided hotspot if needed? Yep, that will be another thing. Yep. If there's no other way to get internet access to the home, because a lot of providers are still providing free access, and so if your parents or you try to sign up for that and it doesn't reach out to where you are, then yes, we'll provide some level of access. All the schools have access. You can go to a school and log in. We've talked about putting buses out if we go remote or schools are closed, in order to give everyone access. But yep, we'll provide access as well. Will virtual students need to attend the conferences? Ooh, good question. I'm going to say, good question. No, not if they're already enrolled in virtual, they won't. because they will have their own orientation the following week. Again, I wish I had that date in front of me, but they'll have that information will be pushed out to all of those who enrolled though. But no, they do not need to attend the conferences, because their information relative to their Chromebooks and their information from their teacher of records is going to come at a later time. When will computer distribution happen for students that need a computer? Again, that's going to all be the conversation on August 31st and September 1st. All those things. Some of those Chromebooks will be rolled out on those days. Other days will be at a later date, but that information will come out through the buildings of what, because each building is going to work through the logistics. They have to have staff there in order to hand those out. There's going to be some documents that parents are going to have to sign relative to acceptable use policy. So all those things kind of have to be in place. It's not as simple as just people walking up and handing Chromebooks out, and you all know that. So there's a process that has to be in place, and those things we're getting those logistics together, so we'll know. Okay, I'm scrolling through to see if you have any. Well, okay, at this point, again, I wish I had some more answers for you for some of the questions you had. I think they're great questions. If you have any additional questions or any other suggestions, please send them to me, superintendent@nowschools.org. You should be able to see it on the screen right there. Again, any of the questions that you asked that I wasn't able to answer, I'm going to go through them again, and then I'll make sure they're posted and on our frequently asked questions. But I'll also talk to the building administrators and say, hey, here's some questions that I received. Make sure that when you communicate out, or with the Virtual Vikings, make sure that when you communicate out that these dates and this information is shared, because these are questions that I have. I'm really excited, really excited. Again, Virtual Vikings, we're all this together. We're all Vikings, so we're going to stay together as a school community. But we will get through this. It is tough times. We're working hard. I know it's disruptive, but we will make it through. We will make it safely, and we'll do the very best we can. I am really looking forward to seeing the kids in the hallways again. I'm looking forward to seeing kids out on recess, because yes, that will be going out for recess. I'm looking forward to seeing the high school students, in the high school. School's going to look a little different, but the conversations, the connections, the relationships, that's also going to be there. Whether you're a virtual Viking or whether you're in person, it's going to be there. And so we're going to get through this together. So at that, this is the last thing. I think this might be my last interview, unless I have other questions. Maybe after I start school, maybe some other questions might come up, and then we'll hold another Viking interview or Viking virtual if we need to do that. But at this point, I just want to thank you for your questions, and thank you for taking the time to log in. Thank you very much. Have a good day.